Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have an upload that I feel is very important. Not only does it shine some light on certain things, but it's also horrifying. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the content I put out, hit that bell icon, and also please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And they do matter. With that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Alright guys, shortly, in a little bit here, I will be heading back up to where Tom Mezek disappeared. I am taking some advice from you guys. I will be bringing some paranormal equipment with me. And I will be doing a little bit of paranormal research, hoping to catch something in that location where things feel off. That one spot where last year I went up there and I was on the trail and I turned and I just went right up and hiked into the woods. I ended up finding 3 stacked rocks, which was really strange. I did show it once or twice on the channel. I talked about it a couple different times. It's something I don't want to really talk about too much because, you know, with all of the BS and all of the make-believe on other channels, I don't want that coming at me. I know what I saw. I know that when I brought it up to my dad said, well, maybe it was another hiker. And I said, Dad, for another hiker to walk out, turn directly where I turned, and venture up into the woods, up some pretty rugged terrain, would be like 1 in a million. You probably have a better shot of getting hit by lightning. And he sat there and thought about it a lot more and said, yeah, you're probably right. That is kind of weird. Anyway, it was 3 rocks, 1 big, large one, a smaller one, and then one on top of that. As we know, Bigfoot is usually associated with those. I've heard of Dogman also creating certain little things as well. Not saying it's either or, you know. I don't know what it is. But anyway, I will be going up in that area. How those trees are bent and that feeling, that tree being broke at 7.5, almost 8 feet, is just all a little unnerving to me. So I'll take your guys' advice. Jeff, take some paranormal equipment up there and do it, and I will. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of why we are here today. All right, so I received an email yesterday, and what it said was that with your BS channel, You are causing people not to go out into the woods out of fear, and also you are causing a possible death, accidental, because carrying firearms in the wilderness, no one should do unless you're hunting, and even then you shouldn't, they said. And that these things don't exist, and if they do, that no one has ever lost their lives because of one. I almost didn't feed into the goading, but I entertained the idea for a split second, and I said, you know what? It's about 12:30 in the afternoon. I'm jacked up on caffeine. Let's have a little fun. So I did. And at the end of the 6 or 7 emails back and forth, an hour and a half later, they had nothing else to say to me except some select name calling for myself, my channel, and many of you. And, well, you know, I said crazy is crazy, Karen. I'm not even going to look at Tony Aarons, Amber Miller, Nancy Shaw, Brenda Hamilton, Corey Godsey, Christopher Whiteley. I could keep going on. Ducky. Those are just a few of human lives lost without explanation, only to be blamed by either feral dog or mountain lion, bear, what you name it. But there was one encounter, one email that I got, and I'm gonna wing it all off the top of my head. I'm not even gonna have the paper in front of me. So this family, they lived pretty far out in the country. The girl's uncle was a Navy SEAL. Navy Special Forces is how it was worded. He didn't know fear, this, and that. And he had gone. This family is full of hunters, hikers, fishermen. You know, just the average woodsy person. And this fella went out hunting one day. Came running back into the house sometime later and was shaken up, was crying. And this is very rare because this Navy Special Forces have obviously, he's seen a lot of action. He's dealt with very stressful interactions with people and knows what it's like to face fear and face death. What he saw was a Dogman. He described it. His dad, brother, cousin, few others all went out looking for this thing. They came back. They didn't find anything. Or they did. They found I think they found tracks or some sort of hint of this creature being out there. The poor fella didn't drink. He didn't do anything. He was an honest to God, just a good guy, you know. Fell into booze after the experience and shortly thereafter ended up taking his own life. Now, inadvertently, that is a death caused by a Dogman or a Bigfoot. I'll include them. I'll include by a creature we are told that doesn't exist. All right? So there's one death. And this girl, this person was just, it was a heart-wrenching experience. I just shared, I mean, he was the tough of tough, and it is almost, he must have been face to face with this thing. This thing must have just caused that much trauma, that much just traumatic emotion. Something more must have just happened than him just spotting it off in the distance for him to take his own life. And that one really got me. That one was just, first, because it's a veteran, and second, because I honestly sat there for a while thinking, what did this poor guy see that caused him? Because we've all seen the movies, we've all read the books, we've all heard the stories of how the Green Beret, the Navy SEALs, the Army Rangers are the toughest of the tough. And, for him to take his life, first go down the down into the bottle, addiction, and then take his own life. It was just, something was more than him seeing it, if you know what I mean. And then there's another subscriber. The next life that was lost by one of these creatures is from a friend, a subscriber who became a friend to me and to the channel after sharing his life dealing with these creatures in the Carolinas. Robert, he was a sheriff at one time, and he had some haunting experiences that he had experienced himself right from early childhood. His actual grandfather had an encounter with a Dogman. So one of his most just frightening and strange encounters was when he was on duty. And he was kind of fresh to the beat, rural part of the Carolinas, and there was an old abandoned house. And they used to have to do kind of like not a welfare check, but just a check to make sure there was no kids out there partying, and to make sure, bad things weren't going on there. And he rolls in a couple different times, never sees anything. But then one time he rolls in and he can see eye shine inside the building. He can see it outside the building, and then he sees what he thought was a werewolf at the time. Now knows that it's Dogman. And he had a couple of other real strange encounters. Married at the time, and his wife they were having a cookout. They had a deck on the back of their house, and you could, from one part of the deck, it was kind of raised, and he had his grill there, and he could turn, and his wife could hand him out whatever they were cooking, whether they were cooking chicken, steaks, whatever. And I believe he was cooking steaks that evening. And the wife is right there. They're, having a good time. Just a regular evening, enjoying the night. And all of a sudden, he's turned looking at her, and she's got this just look of horror, and he turns around, and there's this Dogman standing. He's about 3 feet off the ground. He's about 6 foot. This thing's 3 feet off the ground, so we're talking 9 feet, and he's level eye to eye with this monster Dogman. And it ends up taking off, but then he and the missus end up parting ways because she's just really having a hard time coming to terms with what she saw. He had, of course, told her, and talked to her about everything, and come to find out, a couple years later, she just really had the hardest time with what she saw that night, and ended up going into addiction, and her life was lost at a young age. Had she not seen this creature, Robert believes that she'd still be alive. They would probably still be married. But the one chance, the one time she sees this monster with him, and their lives are changed forever. 2 people lost their lives. Lives were lost. No matter if they took their own life or not. Their family, their friends, have to deal with the loss of a loved one. The direct cause is one of these creatures. Let's get into 2 experiences and encounters that the actual direct cause is one of these creatures. All right, so the next life lost by one of these creatures is, now we are going to talk about an attack. A couple different ones. We'll start off with this one. There's a group of kids. They're all 17, 18 years old. A few are in school, a few aren't. This young woman has a boyfriend. He's homeless, down on his luck, bad family, whatnot. Or he ran away. I'm not really sure. His background is not really given too much, except that he was homeless. At school, they hear about this place called the Goatman Mound. And like I said, the young man doesn't go to school. So they hear that if you go up there will be this goat man will come out of the surrounding woods and chase you out of the locale. What do? They decide to be kids, and they go up and have a bonfire. There's maybe 6 or 7 of them, including this young man and his girlfriend. Now, they're across from each other. The fire's in the middle. There's all the friends are just, hanging out. She sees him, or they're looking at each other, and behind this young guy comes this 7 to 8 foot goat human creature. And the kids take off running. And they leave the young man up there. And they don't go back. They don't go back until, I think, the next day. But mind you, he's homeless. So the kids go up, look for him. They don't see him. There's no kind of, for a couple of days, there's no one's seen hide or hair of him. And now they're like, if we say anything to anyone, we will be suspected. We will be suspects of his murder. So they don't say anything. One, because no one's going to come looking for him. Because once again, he's homeless. He's got no family to speak of. This experience, this night has played out in that poor young woman's mind for a very long time. And, a life was lost that evening. Not by a Dogman, not by a Bigfoot, but by another cryptid that we know as the Goatman. Maryland has their kind of Goatman tales. So does Texas, Goatman Bridge. I believe that one happened in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. And the next event of someone losing their life is another group of kids, maybe 3 or 4, I think 4, are hiking. Beautiful day. They're enjoying nature. They're on their way back to where their hike started off. As they're coming down this trail, they see a large bipedal canine come out of nowhere. They all take off running, all of them. At one point, they're all side by side or huddled next to each other, just running. You know how, you run with a group of your friends, and eventually the faster one leads, the slower one falls back. Well, it happens, and then bam, you can hear, including your own, 4 people's footsteps running. Then you hear 3. Then you hear 2. Then you hear just your own. And you make it out. And you go and you tell law enforcement what happened. They look at you like you're a criminal. But they go up to that location and they say that your friends, we can't find them, but they were killed by bear. And that's what we're going to tell everyone. The final experience that I want to share with you of a life lost by one of these creatures was, not only have I spoken to this person, but Tom Lyons was the one who initially did the research and spoke with this person. And it's in his book, Dogman, Frightening Encounters. So this young woman is really struggling. She struggled most of her teenage and young adult life with depression. She just recently had found out that going on hikes in nature, she doesn't feel so depressed. She doesn't feel like her world's caving in on her. And she tries to get out, or tried to get out into the wilderness 2 or 3 times a week. It really made her feel like her world wasn't just caving in on her. And one day she goes to this location that she's traveled a couple of different times. As she's in the trail system, she hears a cry for help, and she takes off running toward the cry for help. Now, when she gets to the location, prior to her getting to, she hears a gunshot then as she's coming up. When she gets to where the cry for help is, there's kind of this not cavern, but kind of small chasm separating her side from another side. You can jump across. You can easily get across. It's maybe 3 feet. Just a jump. A kid couldn't do it, but, a teenager or adult could. As she's getting here, she sees this clean-cut looking fella on the ground with a firearm in his hand, a pistol. And she sees this huge bipedal monstrosity canine Dogman looking down at this guy. They make eye contact with each other, the young woman and the guy that's on the ground. In her head, she's like, oh my God, what am I looking at? What is this thing? Is it gonna kill me too? He's looking at her like, get out of here. Get out. I'll keep it distracted long enough. Get the hell out of here. If there's gonna be any loss of life, it's gonna be mine. Go. Her being a good Samaritan, sees this creature take a step at the guy. She screams out, and the Dogman turns around and just looks at her with just anger and rage-filled face, like, I'm going to make you my dinner now, or you're going to be the appetizer, he'll be the dinner, whatever. He looks, run. In her head, she's fighting. Do I leave this guy? I cannot leave this guy. He's going to lose his life. He shoots again at the creature. She takes off running. As she's almost to her vehicle, she hears this just terrible cry for help. This scream of pain. For months after this, she's never been back to this location, but for months after, in the newspaper, she looked for any kind of mention of someone's death in that location in the paper, but she never found it. She never found it. The scream that she heard, she knew was that guy's death scream. You don't have to be there to know, obviously. I mean, and it messed her up even more. So right there's 5 deaths caused by these creatures. 2, they've taken their own life. And 3, these creatures have taken it for them. Not counting, once again, Amber Miller, Tony Aarons of Cott County, Tennessee, Christopher Whiteley of Lipton, Texas, Brenda Hamilton of the Carolinas, Nancy Shaw of Georgia, Corey Godsey, Knott County, Kentucky, Ducky, Jacksonville, Florida. I could keep going. There are more. That these folks have lost their lives to creatures we know exist, but creatures the government doesn't want to say exist, so they use feral dog or wild dog, even though a wild dog is, if you look it up, Google wild dog, it's a breed of dog in Africa. I know people be like, a dingo is a wild dog. A dingo is a dog that lives outside, but a wild dog, a real wild dog is a African canine. It's funny because every time I say this, I get about 30 different people commenting on wild dog. Here it is. Wild dog. The African wild dog, also called the painted dog or the Cape hunting dog, is a wild canine, which is a native species to the sub-Saharan Africa. Yes, there are feral dog that roam the Americas. There are dingoes, but they have a name. Dingo. A wild dog is an African dog. What the government, and they love to use, wild dog killed this guy. No, it was, if you're going to say it was a feral dog or domesticated dog that got off his leash, which does happen. This stuff does happen. There are multiple attacks daily by animals that are not dogmen. But on those occasions, like in Oregon just recently, Brazil just before that, Meeker, Colorado, they're blaming wolves on all this cattle attack. When a subscriber spots Dogman and a kill team coming in. Unfortunately, there are deaths caused by these creatures. It does happen. It's a tragedy. That email just struck a chord. And I said some pretty snide stuff back, like, I'm sorry that you're offended, but, I want people to actually know the reality. I'm not a creepypasta channel, buddy. I'm telling you folks what is given to me or what I've heard or just information I stumble upon. And you guys are the same way. You send me stuff. It's just crazy that this person actually was like, no death has ever occurred from these. Well, there's 5 right there. Not counting the other 7 to 8 that I just mentioned after that. Guys, thank you for supporting this channel. Without you, this channel would be just me talking to this camera. No one listening. Thank you for sharing information with me. Thank you for sharing your puzzle pieces with me. And with that, stay safe, happy, and healthy. And God bless.